Hey, I'm Hannah Weiss, the Director of Education at the Science Museum of Western Virginia, and this is your moment of STEM. And this week, we're going to talk about the moon. See, there's this old teacher's tale that when you're really close to a full moon, you can definitely tell it. The students in your class are, well, let's just call them really energetic. And this week, you've definitely been able to feel that around the museum. Our visitors have been really excited to be here, which is awesome. But we are also really, really close to a full moon. In fact, a really, really special full moon that happened just at the beginning of this week. We had what's called a super wolf blood moon. Now that may sound really complicated, but that's just a combination of three things. A wolf moon, which is what a lot of people call the first full moon of the year. A super moon, which is when the moon looks really, really big. And that happens when the moon is at or really close to its perigee, the closest it gets to Earth. And then a blood moon. And that's what happens when you have a lunar eclipse. The moon looks kind of like a rusty color because of the light filtering through the Earth's shadow. These three things together give us a super wolf blood moon. But that's only half the story. That kind of energy is something that a lot of people have wondered about. Does the full moon really make people crazy? You hear stories all over of classrooms being really, like I said, energetic, or emergency rooms seeing a lot more people coming in, and even veterinary offices seeing some of their, let's call them weirder cases. Is this actually the result of a full moon? There have been a ton of scientific studies looking at the full moon and lunacy. I mean, the word itself kind of shares that same root as lunar. But most of them have found that there's not actually a link. What has been shown, though, is that this may be the result of two things happening: confirmation bias and correlation without causation. So confirmation bias is when you really only see what you expect to see. It's this kind of idea that if you see people acting really, really crazy during a full moon, you're going to remember that they were crazy during a full moon and not remember them being crazy all the time. So a teacher may blame their classes being really energetic on the full moon, even though they were also really energetic Friday the week before. We also have this correlation without causation, this idea that two things may happen together, but that doesn't mean one is causative. And a really, really good example of that might be if I told you that ice cream causes drowning, right? The months that we consume the most ice cream are the months that we see the most drowning. Of course, if I told you that, you would probably say that I'm being really, really silly, right? Of course, we consume most ice cream during the months that there's the most drowning. We do both of those things during the summer when we're more likely to be by the water. But that's what correlation without causation is. You see two things that happen a lot together, and you say that they're related. So, people being a little bit crazier during the full moon, you say that it happens because of the full moon, but it might have other causes. Studies have even fallen victim to this. There was a study about traffic accidents that claimed that more of them happened during the full moon, but failed to take into account that most of the full moons they were looking at occurred on the weekend, when we have a higher incidence of traffic accidents. So, is it true that the full moon causes this kind of craziness? Probably not. Well, not now anyway. Some researchers have suggested that the full moon may have led to some, well, different behavior. Nights right now, they're kind of full of lights. Ever since we've had electric lights, the nights have been really, really bright. But before electric lights, on a night with a full moon, it would have been really, really bright. And that could have prevented some people from sleeping. Sleep deprivation, as we've actually talked about on these videos before, can lead to some really interesting neurological stuff. But if you'd like to dig any deeper into any of the effects of a full moon, you can check out the links below. Otherwise, I'm Hannah Weiss from the Science Museum of Western Virginia, and I really love full moons.